Miller. Tonight on the show, the 2016 revolt ain't over yet.
Time to end the scourge of anti-Semitism.
Mass migration is a betrayal of British people.
Why do Gen Z want to ban the Bible?
And why Britain needs to get building no matter what the moaners say.
It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Welcome to the Saturday 5, the very best Saturday night takeaway that you could possibly order. Expect fiery debate, spicy opinions and a huge topping of fun. Every week, join Albie, Benjamin and myself, along with guest stars. Tonight, it's Conor Tomlinson and Lois McClatchy-Miller. The premise of the show is simple. Each host gets 60 seconds or so to outline their argument about a chosen topic, and then we'll all pile in and the fur starts to fly. And of course, we want to know your views as well. Get in touch by emailing gbviews@gbnews.com. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday night news with Aaron.
Hello there, very good evening to you. Aaron Armstrong here with your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The delay to the second release of hostages held by Hamas may have been resolved following intervention by Egypt and Qatar. That's the latest report from the Reuters news agency. Now, earlier, Hamas accused Israel of violating the terms of the truce agreement. It said Israel was not letting aid trucks into northern Gaza, so Hamas called a halt to proceedings. But now we understand that 13 people will be freed from captivity in Gaza. At some point tonight, they'll be handed over to the Red Crescent. Egyptian authorities are waiting, though, right there at the picture you can see now at the Rafah border crossing, for the transfer of those hostages to take place. Now, in return, Israel's agreed to release 39 Palestinian prisoners from the West Bank. That's part of the deal brokered by Qatar. It is the second of a four-day pause in fighting. And the delay, well, we don't know how long now it will take, but we will keep an eye on it and bring you the latest as soon as we get it here at GB News. Meanwhile, a 4-year-old girl released yesterday after being held captive by Hamas has told her father she dreamed of coming home. Raz Asher, her 2-year-old sister Aviv and her mother Doron were reunited with Yoni Asher, the 4-year-old's father, on Friday. That was the first stage of the Israel-Hamas hostage deal. 24 people were released, a number of them taken to Schneider Children's Hospital, where authorities say they've been responding well to medical treatment. Meanwhile, police have arrested 2 people on suspicion of supporting a proscribed terrorist organisation. Officers took the action as tens of thousands of people demonstrated at a pro-Palestine march in central London. Police say one suspect was seen in Trafalgar Square wearing a green headband with white Arabic script on it. He had several more in his possession. Another protester was earlier arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred. He was seen carrying a placard with Nazi symbols on it. The former police officer convicted of murdering George Floyd has been stabbed at a prison in Arizona. That's according to reports in the United States. It's understood Derek Chauvin survived the attack by another inmate on Friday, but has been seriously injured. It comes days after the Supreme Court rejected his appeal. The 47-year-old argued he did not receive a fair trial. Mr. Chauvin is currently serving multiple sentences for George Floyd's death in 2020, which led to widespread protests against police brutality and racism. And tonight's expected to be the coldest of the autumn season so far, with sub-zero temperatures across large parts of the country. It comes after many areas experienced their first frost of the year. Temperatures were well below freezing. Across north-western England and in the south, temperatures could dip to -7. Rural parts of Wales, well, it could be somewhere around the region of -4. The Met Office also says snow could well fall next week. Well, this is GB News. We're on TV, digital radio and on your smart speaker too. That's it from me for the moment. Now it's over to the Saturday 5.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. It might be cold outside, folks, but I tell you what, it's not going to bite as much as it will in this studio. I can promise you're in for a very lively hour. Let's crack on with tonight's first debate. Kicking us off with his take on this week's record immigration figures, it's Conor Tomlinson. Take it away, Conor.
Yeah, new ONS figures show a record net migration number of 672,000 people entering the UK this year. That's about 1.2 million legal, plus about 30,000 boat migrants who broke into the country. The UK has seen more immigration in the last 25 years than between the Norman conquest of 1066 and the Second World War. Now, you can't just blame Hong Kong and Ukraine for this, because 10% of humanitarian visas have been knocked off the total in the last year. About 250,000 of these are new Indian arrivals. Last I checked, a country that wasn't at war. So why isn't the government willing to reduce numbers when the British public has voted for that in every election for the last decade? It's because they're committed at all costs to seeing the GDP line grow up. How do you grow an economy? You either grow productivity or you grow the population. Well, since the 1990s, productivity has stagnated and net zero is ensuring that all of our energy bills keep going up. So that's clearly not the plan. The problem is nobody's having babies. The demographic pyramid is inverting. Britain's birth rate is below 1.5 children per woman. Replacement rate is 2.1. We saw 200,000 fewer births than people turning 50 last year. We're going to reach a 50% retiree to worker ratio. Without importing low-wage workers, there's going to be nobody staffing institutional care. So the plan seems to be battery farm everyone from everywhere until, according to a recent ARC report, the UK becomes 54% first-generation immigrant by 2083. Are all young people too selfish or frightened by climate change to have kids? Well, though 50% of women in the UK reach 30 without any children, 92% when polled by the new Social Covenant unit said that actually they want them. It's just economic pressures and anxieties about the future that are causing them to delay. And if things don't change, by 2050, 800 million people are going to have wanted to have children but never have them. Now, why do I bring this up? Immigration is contributing to low birth rates. To have a family, you need a house. And Migration Watch found that by 2046, you're going to need to build 18 new cities the size of Birmingham just to accommodate for new migrant arrivals. We just can't keep pace with the rate of change. Personal tragedy and economic catastrophe is going to await us if this goes on. And beyond material arguments, a sense of belonging is necessary. It matters. People don't want to bring children in a civilization that they don't recognise. When the world on your doorstep is changing at a dizzying rate, it is against our wishes. We didn't move, but our country looks like somewhere else. And unlike the new arrivals, British people have no other home to go to. This can't go on. People polling found 53% of the British public want a 5-year moratorium on all migration. So, less migrants, more babies, and a Britain that the native population can believe in again.
Well, Conor, I'm afraid to say that you look somewhat short on this panel, but I think it's, for the most part, it's absolutely right that we're not having enough babies, and everything he said there, even you couldn't possibly disagree with.
I mean, I know I put some weight on, but I'm not having a baby.
I did think that was maternity clothing.
Yeah, I'm dressed like a jockey. But look, the point I'd make is that I think there's a real level of dishonesty about the government at the moment, because we've had these figures. First of all, I'd point out, when David Cameron came into office, he said we'll get immigration to the tens of thousands. It's triple the numbers that he inherited from the last Labour government. So that puts it in context how much things have gone up. But I think there's a dishonesty in the line that the government took in the last couple of days, because they say this isn't an acceptable figure, it's too high, we must get it down. Well, I don't think it's an accident that you had these numbers. Business leaders and groups that represent, economic forecasters have consistently said that we have areas of the economy like lorry drivers, like healthcare workers, social care, where we don't have enough staff to do those jobs, and that they're going to struggle to function without immigrant labour. And so I think it's an intentional strategy that they brought these people in. And I also would say that's a pretty good defence that, you might not like the immigration numbers, but I'd rather that than see my nan not be able to looked after, or have a pub not be able to open at the weekends because it doesn't have any bar staff.
OK, so there's about 5,000 doctors every year that leave the UK and go and work abroad, so we should be focusing on retention there, particularly because the quality of care of a UK doctor is far better than someone trained up in Malaysia with very different credentials. So
Malaysia's a very highly educated country.
OK, I'm...
Just on that point, Conor, are you aware that one of the reasons why the net migration figures are so high this year is because there have been much less emigration from the UK to other countries?
There was about 700,000.
So actually we're seeing more British people stay in this country, and that is one of the reasons why the numbers are so high this year?
I think only 84,000 British people returned from temporary stays overseas. But the point is, it's still going up, and it's not a blip. It's actually just an exponential trend. And you brought forward economic arguments. I mean, of course, there are business leaders that are lobbying the Tory party. 25% of the government's donors are property developers, so of course they have an incentive to keep pressure on the housing market. There are loads of ghost jobs that they keep putting up to keep manufacturing consent for bringing in more people and suppressing native wages. But again, it's not just an economic argument. It's about, do people feel they belong here? And did we ask for this cultural change? No, and it's still happening.
Can I just point out, I mean, at least two of us on this panel, my grandparents came here from Canada. Albie's grandparents came here from, I'm not sure, which country was it?
Ghana.
Ghana. I don't know whether, Lois, you have...
Well, I'm a native Scot, so if you make that to be an issue of migration, that...
But when you talk about belonging, I would just suggest that, you know, there's an awful lot of people here that you wouldn't even note to be from an immigrant background that are, and they've managed to integrate because you don't even notice it.
And a large number of people haven't. I mean, come on, go to certain areas of London. They are ethnic enclaves. They are, and it's unpleasant. It's not nice.
I think this is not only about migration, and I want to draw out what you said about women's choice. We often tout this country as a pro-choice country, but suddenly that ends when women actually want to have children. 8% of us don't want to have children, but 1 in 5 will reach 45 without having a child, and that is detrimental to our aspirations as women, but also seeing our loneliness rates go up across this country. 1/3 of households are now single occupant. This is not good and healthy for our society. We're meant to be people who thrive in relationships, in families, and yet we are funneled into a system where we are meant to get our meaning and worth from corporate jobs. It's just not good for our mental health as a nation.
I'm a little bit unsure of the link between people needing to have more babies and you being anti-immigration, to be honest. I mean, they're both perfectly reasonable points, but I just don't understand how they're related. And also, one of the things which I think we have to accept is we've actually seen migration triple after Brexit. Wasn't the whole point of Brexit to have low migration? But then we saw Boris Johnson with Priti Patel as Home Secretary, then Suella Braverman as Home Secretary, liberalise immigration rules into this country.
Yeah, it's treachery.
And we've seen net migration of 750,000 this year in a post-Brexit government.
But it's because
What's
our
that all
economy
about?
needs these workers, and that's why I think the government is dishonest.
Well, let Conor come back to that.
accidental.
Well, OK, the Treasury Green Book says a minimum of 200,000, but when certain people that are contributing to Tory policy were asked, well, if it said 1 million, would you have any arguments against it? At Conservative Party conference, they said no. So they're jettisoning all of the cultural considerations, which British people actually care about. This is why the Tories are losing, because everyone always votes for the Conservatives when they say they want to lower net migration, and successive governments have abandoned it. And also, not every immigrant is made equal, right? You're looking at the averages in terms of what immigration brings to the country. There are certain countries and certain immigrants that bring a disproportionate amount of money. But, for example, when 72% of Somalians who are in the UK are on social housing, I would be hard-pressed to say that that is a contribution we want to bring in. Not all immigrants are created equal.
There's a great irony in giving the example of Somalia, because I think they have about the highest birth rate going, and you talk about how we need to have more babies.
Natural birth rate, natural.
Yeah, but these are people that have come here, settled
They don't have the same culture. They do not have the same culture.
They have, you know, it's not unusual for them to have 5 to 10 kids.
I care about the culture of my country and the continuity it's handed down, Benjamin. I don't think all people are exactly the same.
Well, my sister's done her bit because she has 9 children.
Good on her.
So she will satisfy your needs for this country. But that's it from that. Now, Darren is going to tell us why Geert Wilders' win in the Netherlands is Brexit 2.0 and the elites ought to watch out. Yep, it's a rare move. Darren's talking about immigration.
Right, let's have a natter about what's been unfolding in Dublin this week, shall we? Picture this. Innocent Irish bairns just outside their school, no clue what's about to hit them, get stabbed. The alleged culprit in this crime, an Algerian national. This is the kind of gut-wrenching news that should have all of us down in tools gabbing non-stop about the state of our streets across the West, across Europe. But what do we get instead? Well, we get politicos and the media in Ireland, rather than soothing a public rightly spooked, are banging on about slapping hate crime laws retrospectively on the so-called far-right spectre. They'd rather wag fingers at this phantom menace than face up to the elephant in the room, mass migration. It's the pet project that they've been pushing, and now they're turning a blind eye eye to its consequences. And I'll bet you my last quid that folk are more scared stiff about their kids being knifed or their neighbours being offed than some riled-up protest. And then there's this kerfuffle over Geert Wilders getting elected in Holland. You'd think that the world had ended. More fuss over that than the safety of our kids, than the very fabric of our communities. They're being ripped apart. I say wakey, wakey. It's time to stop skirting around the bush and tackle these thorny issues head on. It's net zero, it's mass migration, it's lawlessness, it's a replacement of democracy for elite technocracy that swept the likes of Wilders to power. The West deserves better than this hush, hush and sidestepping by the powers that be. And what about us, right? What about us here in Blighty? Vote Labour and you're signing up for unbridled immigration, chuck your vote at the Tories and what do you get? Same old. Same old. They're just two sides of the same wrinkly old behind. It's as plain as the nose on your face. No matter how we take our ballots, the thin-skinned bigwigs in Westminster aren't moving a muscle on policy. So you're worried about Geert Wilders getting in power in Europe? Mark my words, this is a big blinking sign. Can you see it yet? If you thought Brexit shook things up, brace yourself. What's coming next is going to blow the roof off. Benjamin Butterworth, have even you woken up to the fact that actually we're just not having it anymore and that you lot need to wake up and smell the coffee?
I mean, look, if you look at the other right-wing populists of his ilk who have been elected, like in Hungary, like in the US, they've been incredibly ineffective once they get into power. So I wouldn't get your hopes up for this some sort of revolution. But what I would say
Donald Trump was ineffective in power.
Viktor Orban's not been.
You literally all argued in the pages of The Guardian and other papers, I forget which one you write for.
There is.
And the fact of the matter is, you said that we were in the throes of fascism, that he was so powerful, that he was changing the state before our very eyes. Now you say he's ineffective. Make your mind up.
No, I think Donald Trump absolutely is a fascist. He has fascistic intentions in the way that he tries to undermine the courts and the media. But the point is, he wasn't very good at it. And these people often aren't, because populism is based on selling people a dream that bears little relation to the boring, hard work of solving a lot of these problems. Now, I would just also point out that, you know, Geert Wilders is almost in a different league to Donald Trump, because this is a guy who, you know, he had the Muslim ban in America. This guy has said he wants to ban the Quran and ban mosques in the Netherlands. Do you defend that?
Well, my point is actually, if you find those kinds of policy proposals so deeply offensive, then you actually need to start listening to the people of this country.
The question?
The question, well, look, in my opinion, those kinds of views wouldn't be voted for in this country. But if you don't start listening to actually what people like me are saying, which I think is perfectly reasonable, then you're going to get a
saying we should ban the Quran, Darren?
Who's saying that in this country?
Geert Wilders was supporting that policy. Ben was trying to ask you whether or not you endorse that policy.
I believe in free speech.
That policy
I believe
or not?
in free speech, so I'm perfectly happy for people to read whatever it is that they want to read. I'm not perfectly happy for the kinds of views that we've seen again on the streets of London being parroted in the name of jihad and intifada. I'm actually vehemently against that. So if you're asking me if I support Islamism, no is the answer.
That's not what he discusses.
Yes, he does.
It's not. He wants to ban Islam, and I think that's incredibly dangerous. You know, we know what happened when people tried to do that to Jews and the Jewish faith, and I don't think it makes it OK to do it in another direction.
Have Jews been committing any terror attacks by any chance? Just a quick question.
I'm not saying that that's acceptable. I'm saying that...
No, that's a false conflation, so don't try and do that.
Well, hang on.
Don't do that.
No one is more a victim of Islamist terror than Muslims, right? So the idea of trying to...
Actually, no, it's the European populations that didn't need those terrorists to be there.
So are you saying all Muslims are terrorists? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying that if you mass import the Muslim populations from around the world who do not share the same views as liberal democracies like the UK or the Netherlands, you're going to bring in terrorists who then inflict unnecessary crimes on the people that live there.
But there were terrorists in Europe before Muslim migration.
Have you heard of the IRA?
Yes, and
Right.
I'm saying... Hang on. Yeah, that's a domestic terror problem. I'm not saying...
Christians?
I'm not saying... Very few. I'm not saying that there is a sole problem, that terrorism is localised in the Muslim world. I am saying you would not get
Your
Muslim
argument would have
terrorism...
banned Irish people 30 years ago.
I'm half Irish, you moron. Stop
But that's the argument you're making.
No, I'm not.
You're saying you import these people that don't like our values,
No, he's not.
so you should throw them out.
Connor's saying that actually
that's
the fact that we've got concrete bollards outside of Christmas markets ain't because of the Irish.
Yes.
But if you went back 30 years, you could make all those points you just made.
If we were under
Someone would make
wartime,
those about
then
the
it would
Irish,
be
and we
fair to
learned that
say...
saying no blacks, no gays, no dogs, no Irish
You're just
isn't
escalating up an
acceptable.
insane train now. Okay,
No, it's not, because you seem to think that you should ban the Quran and ban Islam in the way that the new Dutch Prime Minister echoes.
You should have ideological prescriptions in immigration. And if you are importing people from an Islamist nation that would, for example, want to throw you off a tower block, I don't want to bring them here. And the Dutch clearly don't want that either.
Well, wait till you find out what the Catholic Church thinks.
Albie, you surely agree that the scenes that we've seen again today, every weekend since October the 7th, they're things that actually don't back our values, do they?
Of course not, but I think one of the most disturbing things about a lot of these protesters is they're sort of young people that are around our age. These are sort of second and third generation migrants, people like me whose parents were immigrants. These are British people espousing these views. And what do you do with that?
Lois, just briefly, I mean, do you agree with the sentiment that actually if the political class don't wake up, then they are going to get another shock? And that's what it takes, potentially.
And I think you have to concede, Benjamin, as well, that the reason why people turn to these alternatives, which you think are so rogue, is because there's not enough space within the mainstream elite class to have conversations about things that people are concerned with, and that will turn them away from that mainstream group. So I think that has to be the lesson.
Look,
if you're looking at this politically.
I think all religions are redundant and hopeless, but I don't think you should ban Islam, just like I don't think you should ban the Anglican Church.
OK, right, still to come. Benjamin's going to be asking, will Britain ever build anything again? And Lois talks about why young people want to ban the Bible. But next up, Albie's going to delve into why anti-Semitism needs to start being taken seriously because of the very fact that it's taken less seriously than other forms of racism. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, cyclists think the highway code doesn't apply to them. It's time for bikes to have a registration number so they can be accountable at last. In My Take at 10, the BBC licence fee is predicted to reach almost £200 in the next 5 years. Is it worth the money? Plus, was Cliff Richard right to fat shame Elvis Presley? And could a new royal book cause more chaos for King Charles? We're live at 9.
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you.
every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. It's time now for our next debate. Up next, it's Albie, and Albie's going to discuss why he reckons the scourge of anti-Semitism isn't being taken as seriously as other forms of racism. Take it away, Albie.
Why is it for so many people in this country racism is totally unacceptable unless it's racism against Jewish people? Now, since the Israel-Hamas war began on October the 7th, we have seen anti-Semitic hate crime increase in this country by 1,350%. 1,350%. British Jews feel unsafe to walk the streets of our towns and cities. There's extra security that has had to be hired at synagogues, Jewish schools, Jewish shops. People are just not able to live their lives safely. We have large-scale protests in our major towns and cities every weekend where protesters are holding up anti-Semitic signs. There was even reports of a Nazi sign at a protest today in London. In fact, someone was arrested for exactly that today. This is acceptable in modern Britain in 2023. Could you imagine for 1 second if this was another ethnic group? Could you imagine if there were large-scale protests every week where there were people holding up anti-black slogans, anti-Asian slogans, being openly racist on the streets of England? It just would not be tolerated. So why is it that we tolerate it for British Jews? Why is it OK for anti-Semitism but not other forms of racism? It's totally wrong. Now, our national broadcaster, the BBC, which I often defend, has done something absolutely reprehensible. There's a march against anti-Semitism tomorrow, and the BBC have banned their staff from attending over impartiality rules. Now, could you imagine if the BBC had banned their staff from going to the BLM protests? Could you imagine? Would that have ever happened? No, it would never have happened. These double standards have got to stop. This, in the same week that top BBC sports pundit Gary Lineker shared a tweet which likened what is going on in Israel and Gaza to the Holocaust. Absolutely shameful. The double standards have got to stop. We've got to call out racism wherever we see it, and we have got to iron out the scourge of anti-Semitism from British society. Darren, why do you think it is that anti-Semitism is more tolerated than other forms of racism in Britain?
I think that there is a definite feeling by certain people that actually they are the almighty power, that they've got weapons, they're able to defend themselves. The idea that they're somehow a nation-state that's well-equipped to deal with these challenges, the state of Israel, I mean. But when you consider that the world's only Jewish state is surrounded by hundreds of millions of people who don't like it very much, it puts that into perspective. And I think on the point you raised there about the BBC, there's also that the BBC have said, Albie, that they won't call what's been going on our streets to be related, well, one, to be naked anti-Semitism, but also to call what happened on October 7th a terror attack.
Which it was.
Which it was. And I listened to Radio 4 the other day because someone told us to, not because out of choice, I tell you that much for free. And they described what happened in New Zealand, where you had that shooting by this Nazi, and they described it as a terror attack. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. If the BBC can describe that as a terror attack, why is it that when it comes to Jews, they find it totally inappropriate to use that language?
That's a really interesting point you raised about the BBC. Ben, I know you're another BBC fan. I don't like taking pops at the BBC for no reason. But I think the way that they have behaved has been reprehensible. Do you think it's right that they're banning their staff from going to this protest tomorrow?
Well, there's some precedent on this, because a couple of years ago, I had a story that was the Director-General had banned them from going on Pride marches because they didn't want them involved in anything about the trans question. They then relented on that when a lot of gay staff that don't even work in current affairs or news said this is not fair, you know, this is a reasonable part of my existence outside of work. I suspect that they're going to have to go through that same process with this because, you know, it's clear that there have been people that work for the BBC that have been on those pro-Palestine marches, or however you wish to phrase it. But being Jewish is someone's racial identity, someone's religion. The idea that they can't stand up against that hate, you know, the idea that any company would ban their employees from doing that would be completely wrong. And the other point on your monologue about the left having a problem with it, well, the Labour Party as it is in a good place on this issue because it had to fight it. No, it is, because it had to get rid of so many anti-Semites that were in the Labour Party.
You're kidding me.
The people that are left are very sensitive to the topic, and you see that in Keir Starmer, who, as I always point out, the Starmers, you know, will be the first Jewish family in Downing Street in 150 years.
How many front bench resignations did the Labour Party have?
I don't think saying that they resigned over a ceasefire is the same as saying they're an anti-Semite.
Naz Shah was on the front bench and she said that Israel should be the 51st state of the United States because they control their foreign aid budget.
Well, Naz Shah was praised by the Board of Deputies for going on a course to learn about what the anti-Semitism and reflect on it.
Well, there were
if the Board of Deputies took her apology, I think we should.
That resigned over that issue, that said that Keir Starmer was wrong. Why do you think that they said he was wrong?
But hang on, that was about a ceasefire, which isn't the same as the question about being an anti-Semite, and I think it's unreasonable to conflate the two like that.
I want to get Lois in on this for a second. What do you say to people who say that Jewish people don't look visibly ethnic minority, so therefore racism doesn't count to them?
I'd ask them to take half a second to look into a history textbook, of course, but, you know, as you were reflecting in your monologue, I was thinking about Priscilla Braverman, who, having, you know, written publicly about this problem of double standards and two-tiered policing, has sadly been chopped out of the government, but she was absolutely right. There is a two-tiered policing standard that cuts through this state. You just look at the number of arrests that take place or don't take place when people say extremely controversial anti-Semite or glorify terrorism on the streets. But, you know, you then on another week, or even the same week, you'll see stories come out in the press about people, you know, being arrested for praying silently inside their heads. How can we live in a society that treats two different ideologies so differently? We need to have a clear standard of policing. The UK government has a particularly censorial line, which I have often criticised. But if we were applying censorial laws, will we please take them evenly across us all?
Hate crimes have increased against Jews by 1,350%, Darren. Are you the kind of person that thinks we don't need hate crimes and actually we should scrap those kinds of legislation altogether?
Well, do we need hate crimes? I mean, obviously not, no.
But they're not useful in this
if you're asking me about legislation, but actual hate crimes...
No, I mean the concept of hate crime. There are lots of people who disagree with the concept of hate crime. They say we don't need hate crimes because it's already a crime.
I interviewed a broadcaster, a historian, in 2020, in the summer of the Black Lives Matter riots, and I was given a non-crime hate incident on my name, against my name, for doing that interview, for airing and broadcasting that interview. Now, do I think that those sorts of things are laudable and worthy of being kept about on the statute book? No, I don't. I think that they are a damn disgrace and lead to the kind of perverse incentives that Lois mentioned just now. So there is clearly a fine line between standing up and saying we need Muslim armies to call for intifada and jihad and say that, like they did outside the Sydney Opera House and other places, even going as far as to say we need to kill Jews. That is blatant incitement and is illegal. illegal and ought to remain illegal. But me interviewing someone that says something controversial, I don't think ought to be classed as illegal. I think it ought to be challenged in wider speech and debate, as a robust society ought to be able to do. So there is the difference that I would make, and I'm sure you would agree with that, Conor, where the line has just clearly gone far too far over to the other side, whereas these days, as Lois rightly says, praying in your head, that can see you arrested, but calling for massacre of Jews, well, that's all right, don't worry, love.
Conor, where do we go from here?
I think that there are very influential politicians who have pushed for very liberal, ideologically blind mass migration laws for a very long time. Some of them, particularly in the Biden administration, who are from a Jewish background, because they've allowed their ability to think that everyone is as liberal as them to override their self-preservation instinct. And I think now, as we see these horrendous protests in the streets, politicians, particularly those of Jewish heritage, should think, well, should we be a bit more biased about who we let in based on the types of beliefs that they have? And should we be more considerate of the Jewish people that currently live in the country? And
right, but even if you accept that argument, it's a bit late for that when they're on the streets and they live here, right? The problem,
lock them up
the
now and
problem
get rid
is
of them.
that there's clearly lots of hate incidents, hate crimes, hateful rhetoric going on, but you also have the fact that you're entitled to go and protest. I'm firmly on Israel's side, but to pretend this is straightforward is just not the case.
Okie doke. Right, folks, still ahead, you'll be hearing more from that mouth as Benjamin asks, will Britain ever build anything ever again? But next, Lois talks about why young people want to ban the Bible. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Cheers very much for your company and for your emails about tonight's topics. Right, what have we got here? Oh, I'm going to get your email in a second. Up next, though, it's going to be Lois, and she's going to tell us why many young people want to ban the Bible and the risks that we face to our freedoms if we do. Crazy times, folks. Over to you, Lois.
Well, would you ban the Bible? You might think this is a ludicrous question, hailing from parts of the world which don't enjoy the freedom of religion or belief that we do here. But in fact, when posed with the choice to ban the book if parts of the text were found to be hateful, almost a quarter of UK 18 to 34-year-olds have said they would do so. Now, nobody likes to be hated. In fact, loving your neighbour is one of the most iconic commandments of the holy text itself. But what does hateful mean, and who gets to decide which chapters are offensive? We don't need to look far to see the consequences of taking Orwell's 1984 as a guidebook to shutting down Christians. In Finland, former Home Secretary, sitting MP and grandmother Päivi Räsänen was just acquitted after a 4-year legal battle. She was criminally charged with hate speech under the War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity section of the Finnish Criminal Code. I'm not joking. Her crime? She tweeted a Bible verse. And in her tweet, she challenged her own church leadership as to where in the Bible they found justification to sponsor a local Helsinki Pride event. We may no longer be a majority Christian population here in Britain. That's even more reason to protect freedom of speech and belief for all. Already, this apparently conservative government have overseen steps to censor expressions of faith, whether that's arresting street preachers quoting the Bible or even dragging people through courts for praying silently in their heads near abortion facilities. Censoring one type of belief because it fails to fit with the dominant orthodoxy of our day is no better than imposing the illiberal blasphemy laws of the Middle Ages. We need a robust defence of religious freedom from those who craft our legislation. And we need to educate the Be Kind generation on the truly hateful consequences of censorship before this type of thinking creeps further into reality. So, Albie, why are young people so prone to this kind of censorial policy?
Well, I think you see all of this book banning on both the left and the right, don't you? You get the right that want to ban LGBT books because they think that is harmful to children, and you've got left-wingers wanting to ban the Bible because they think it's harmful to children.
Which books, by the way?
There's some pretty wacky stuff in the Bible. I think we can probably just have a whole conversation about some of the wacky stuff in the Bible. Does it mean it should be banned? No. As a general principle, I would just say let's not ban books, whether it is a woke book or an anti-woke book or a Bible or a Quran for that matter.
Benjamin, would you ban the Bible or any other book?
Well, look, I'm a great fan of fiction. I haven't got round to reading the Bible, but I hear it has some great invented tales that lots of people find fascinating.
That explains your Tinder bio.
I don't understand that, but it's one of your better arguments, nonetheless. Look, the fact is that I think what you said is completely wrong when you talk about the idea that someone trying to stop them supporting a Pride event doesn't have some level of hate in it. I think it does. When you talk about the person that was arrested or cautioned in person outside the abortion clinic for praying silently in their head, as you phrase it, well, no, actually, I think people, for whatever reason, whether it's religious or another reason they came to their conclusion to be anti-abortion, going and standing outside an abortion clinic is intimidation, not free speech. And I think that's where you're wrong.
Let's talk about both of those cases, because they're quite distinct. So the Finnish lady who tweeted her, is it really illegal for a member of a church to question policy? It is not hateful to not sponsor a Pride event. That is an action.
But
what
clearly,
the
only reason someone is coming to that conclusion is because they don't like gay people.
But even
right?
if you
it would be farcical to suggest that's not going to be what they think.
They disagree with trans ideology because that goes against biblical scripture.
Well, so does being gay.
You sound like you've been released from a cult, the way you're obsessed
But
with
if you
trans.
disagree with a Christian faith that has been, for generations, been a dominant faith and is now a minority faith in most of the West, Simply, surely you can just talk to them, have a conversation. You surely don't need to shut down their free speech and put them on trial, for goodness sake.
Well, I'm sorry.
Potentially going to prison for expressing a Christian belief.
But you tell that to the millions of people in Africa and the millions of gay people who have been affected by HIV/AIDS because the Catholic Church told them not to wear protection, and it caused an enormous spread of disease and many people lost their lives. That is the hate that comes from the Bible that I think Catholics and people of faith should apologise for, where they start lecturing other people on hate.
Now that's a huge, huge conflation to take one issue and apply this to this grandmother who tweeted a Bible verse and challenged her church.
You're trying to act like it's all innocent, like it's just sweet old dears going, oh, I don't think you should spend money on that. It's not. That's naive to think like that. There are loads of hateful Christians in this country.
And so anyone who disagrees with your worldview, your religious convictions, they should be censored, because that is the outworking of such an ideology or such a way of thinking. And to consider the lady who was arrested for silent prayer, Darren, let's bring you in on that.
Well, I was just going to say, Lois, that he's just been sat there criticising Geert Wilders, for example, for wanting to ban the Quran. Well, he'll ban anything as long as someone is opposed to young people being allowed to massacre themselves in the form of trans ideology.
It's actually got nothing to do with religion, though, does it? That's about the state in our democratic functions.
You have literally just said...
You just move the goalposts.
You can have that debate, but it's not about the Bible.
But you have literally just said to Lois that this woman is hateful for not supporting a Pride march. I wouldn't support a Pride march. I'm gay, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, I suspect they wouldn't want you there, quite frankly. But the truth is that, the idea that it's all about the trans thing to support a Pride march is clearly a hopeful distraction from the fact that that person probably holds prejudiced views. Anyway, Connor's...
Well, Connor, Benjamin Butterworth is making clear here that he does actually support banning things, doesn't he, after all?
I'm not banning the Bible. I just think that...
You think you should be imprisoned if you say things from the Bible? So, yeah, that is a de facto ban in the public square. You're just being dishonest. As well, what is with the obsession with, robbing the fertility from children? But
what...
That is, I'm not in a cult for opposing that, so you want to be careful about that. The broader point about this, and this is attitudes like yours, which are going to get the backlash that you don't like. There was a recent Onward survey that said...
The backlash.
You won't, mate. There was a recent Onward survey in 2022 that asked Gen Z what kind of government structures they favour. And the boomers much preferred liberal democracy because they grew up in the post-war paradigm. Gen Z said 47% they'd like military rule, and 62% said that they wanted to... 55% said rule by experts. You're seeing a split. 62% said they wanted a strong man that could circumvent Parliament. Now, that's either. That was bipartisan. So what happens is, if you decide to shut down perfectly reasonable things like, oh, Christians maybe don't want to pay for a pride parade, if you exclude that from the public square, you're going to get a much stronger backlash that you certainly won't like, and you won't be able to voice your opposition to it.
It's clearly codswallop that 6 in 10 young people want a dictator in charge. That's obviously not a reasonable fact. And, I think that hate, there's no defence for hate, whether you're excusing it for the Bible or excusing it for any other.
You just said all religions were nonsense, so you have a prejudice of yourself. You're just positioning yourself as neutral.
That one could have gone on and on and on. Well done, Lois. But still ahead, Benjamin laments Britain's lack of ability to build. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, cheers very much for your emails about tonight's topics. I have actually got them now. Chloe says, question for Lois, is that a Highland accent I hear? We're up in the Highlands and debating what accent it is.
I'm so glad, because so many people think it's an American one, but it's a West Coast Scottish accent, so thanks for asking.
Well, there we are. That's that debate settled. But time for one that isn't. Up next, it's Benjamin, and he's going to tell us about the scourge of nimbyism and why Sadiq Khan was wrong to block the MSG sphere. Will Britain ever build again? It's time for Benjamin's Bugbear.
Yeah. Hello, good evening, that's right. This week, the Mayor of London blocked a £1.6 billion giant music venue that was to be built in Stratford. The snow globe-shaped music venue was going to be built by the Olympic Park and was to rival the Las Vegas one that opened earlier this year and has seen huge artists like Coldplay and Beyoncé sign up to perform there, raising millions, if not billions of pounds in revenue and creating thousands of jobs. The whole world has been looking at the amazing images from this feat of technology. But the Mayor of London had other ideas, and so did local interfering Green Party councillors who blocked the dream of this giant sphere music venue coming to London. And London, by the way, is a city where 1 in 5 people now work in the creative industries. It's a huge part of this huge city. But unfortunately, we didn't want this $2 billion venue. Now, what a pathetic excuse for a major country we have become when we block having incredible venues like this because it might make a bit of noise or a bit of light. Christ, these people would have blocked the Eiffel Tower. They'd have blocked Big Ben, for God's sake. It's about time we got out of this rut of not building anything because it might change things and started bulldozing through the NIMBYs. Now, Darren, did you want a £2 billion? I think, actually, you live in the North East, and it was the Mayor of Tees, Ben Houchin, who said, well, bring it to Teesside.
Yeah, the Mayor of Tees Valley, I guess, is his full title. But yes, look, if it happens up there, hunky-dory, happy days. But if the people of London don't want it, then, I mean, suit yourself.
Problem is that often, I think the people of London would want a venue like this. There are loads of examples where great ideas, the people at large want it in an area, but just a few people can complain locally and it gets
Connor
blocked.
doesn't like it, though.
It's hideous. Why would I want a giant...
your jacket, but you're still wearing it.
You dress like a jockey, don't even... Why would I want a giant LED blinking eyeball in the middle of my city? There are more than enough great glass eyesores in the middle of London that shouldn't have been there. And comparing this thing to Big Ben, which is actually a beautiful bit of architecture, is frankly quite offensive.
I mean, Do you not understand what some of the residents in Stratford are saying, that they don't want to live next to a massive night light, basically, outside of their block of flats? I mean, look, I love the venue, but I live in Chiswick. I live nowhere near Stratford, so it's not going to impact me at all. Do you not think the local people of Stratford have got something?
I think they should shut up and stick a blind in the window, then they won't have the light in the way. I mean, I just think what a pathetic country that anything that causes that kind of level of disruption, like having a nightclub near you, you get blocks of flats built next to nightclubs that already exist, and then they make a complaint to the council and they have to shut the nightclub. And it's like, well, you bought a flat next to a nightclub.
I feel like the NIMBYs are given a real hard run, though, in the press at the moment. Not only are they, seen as the ones opposing anything new and modern, but they're also blamed for the entire housing crisis. Which, by the way, I mean, the rate that inflation went up on house prices versus the rate that it went up on our wages is nothing comparable. So I feel like this attitude is often the scapegoat for things that are fundamentally not right in our entire structure of society. So I would stick up for the NIMBYs a little bit more than has been given.
Well, that's easy when you're from the Highlands, because there's loads of space for houses. You don't have that problem, I suppose. And I'm not sure how many people want to live there either, but...
You're on a very catchy roll this evening, blimey.
We're getting another email from Chloe
I
for the
think
end
Neil
of the show.
But look, we've built half as many houses as France has in the last 40 years. Now, obviously that is made more difficult by the levels of immigration, let alone...
Oh, he admits it, He's bashed Sadiq Khan, he's just bashed immigration. He's a man on the turn.
I just think that we have this attitude now that says that things can't change. I think it's a disease in British life that people don't like change, and that's why we have a stagnant economy in a stagnant place in the world.
All right, I've just been told I have to silence Benjamin Butterworth, so everyone at home will be absolutely delighted. But thanks to our guests tonight, the brilliant, of course, Connor Tomlinson and Lois. You did a fine job, Lois. Next up, it's the brilliant Leo Kearse with his brand new Saturday Night Showdown. Cheers for watching. We'll see you again next week. Here's your weather with Craig Snell.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, tonight's going to be another dry and cold and frosty one for most of us. A bit of a change out towards the west, and that's all courtesy of this weather front. That's just going to bring in some cloud and rain as the night goes on. But with high pressure generally in charge across much of the UK, clear skies, it's a perfect recipe for a widely frosty night across the UK. Still a bit of a breeze down the eastern seaboard, so here actually temperatures will just stay just above freeze, and then later on, as we start to see this cloud and rain move in, temperatures will recover out towards the west. So as we start Sunday morning, we could just see a few mist and freezing fog patches around, but they will quickly clear. And we'll just start to see this area of cloud and rain just gradually spread its way a little bit further eastward. So sunshine turning increasingly hazy across many eastern areas, but staying largely dry here as the day goes on. Best of the sunshine up across parts of northern and eastern Scotland, but the far north actually just seeing a few outbreaks of rain. Temperatures in the west a little bit higher than they will be today, but still on the cold side for the time of year. Into Monday, a bit of a grey, damp start across many parts of the UK. Some sunshine across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will spread its way a little bit further southwards as the day goes on, but still feeling fairly cold, and that cold theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, but it will turn a little bit dry.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels
We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Leo Curse. I just got off the megabus in London. I can't believe it. GB News have given me my own show. We're going to have the funniest stories, the funniest guests. Get ready for the Saturday Night Showdown. Hi there, coming up in the Saturday Night Showdown. Irish Taoiseach Leo Varadkar has told us that complaining about people being stabbed makes you far right. Apparently, Nella Rose got angry at Nigel Farage, but he decided it would be smart to turn the other cheek. She also got angry at the waiter from First Dates, which is the first time she's got angry at a waiter for something other than bringing her small portions. Marvel's new movie flopped. Maybe doing the same thing 800 times in a row wasn't such a great plan after all. And discussing this and much more, my brilliant panel, Diane Spencer, Nikki Hodgson and Andrew Eborn. And let's get your latest news headlines first from Aaron.
A very good evening to you. It's 8 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The delay to the second release of hostages held by Hamas may have been resolved following intervention by Egypt and Qatar. That is according to the Reuters news agency. Earlier, Hamas halted proceedings after accusing Israel of violating the terms of their truce agreement by not allowing aid trucks to enter northern Gaza. Hamas is expected to transfer 13 Israeli hostages to the Red Cross later. It's expected to take place at the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. Several foreign nationals being held captive may also be released. Well, if the exchange goes ahead, Israel has also agreed to release 39 Palestinians from this prison in the West Bank. It comes on day 2 of a 4-day pause in fighting. Meanwhile, a 4-year-old girl released yesterday after being held captive by Hamas has told her father she dreamed of coming home. Raz Asher, her 2-year-old sister Aviv and her mother Doron were released and reunited with Yoni Asher on Friday. It was the first stage of the Israel-Hamas hostage deal. 24 people were freed. A number were taken to Schneider Children's Hospital, where authorities say they have been responding well to medical treatment. Police have arrested 2 people on suspicion of supporting a proscribed terrorist organisation. The arrest took place as tens of thousands of people marched through central London in a pro-Palestinian rally calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. They say one suspect, police that is, was seen in Trafalgar Square wearing a green headband with white Arabic script on it. He had several more in his possession. And another protester earlier was arrested on suspicion of inciting racial hatred. He was seen carrying a placard with Nazi symbols on it. The former police officer convicted of murdering George Floyd has been stabbed at a prison in Arizona, according to reports in the United States. It's understood Derek Chauvin survived the attack by another inmate on Friday, but has been seriously injured. It comes days after the Supreme Court rejected his appeal. The 47-year-old argued he hadn't received a fair trial. Mr. Chauvin is currently serving multiple sentences for George Floyd's death in 2020, which led to widespread protests against police brutality and racism. And it could well be the coldest night of the year, certainly the coldest of the autumn season later, with sub-zero temperatures across large parts of the country. And many areas experienced their first frost of the year last night. Temperatures were well below freezing in places across northwestern England, and in the south temperatures could dip later to -7 and -4 in parts of rural Wales. The Met Office says it could be expected to snow next week. Well, this is GB News. We're on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. That's it from me for the moment. Now it's over to Leo.
Thanks, Aaron, and welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Well, this was the week that Bristol Airport revealed this glorious multi-faith area. I can't help but feel that Britain doesn't put quite as much effort into its places of worship as it used to. I mean, it's not exactly Durham Cathedral, is it? Although at Durham Cathedral you can combine prayer with waiting for a bus. But yeah, come and kneel in cold concrete in a puddle of urine with cigarette butts floating in it and pray for dry trousers. I mean, at least when people land at Bristol Airport, they'll immediately see the most British thing in the whole of Britain. I think they just didn't know what to do with the smoking area now that smoking's banned, so they changed the sticker on it. And look at that sticker. With that picture, if it doesn't work out as a prayer zone, it can easily be repurposed using the same badge as a glory hole. Meanwhile, the Taliban have revealed a rollerblading division. Yeah, that's right, a rollerblading division. Here they are on the streets of Kabul. The Taliban clearly have no word for irony. They execute people for homosexuality, then strap on their rollerblades and wiggle their little sexy tushes in rollerblades in a very homoerotic manner. It's like the Cliff Richard wired for sound video if he was wired for a suicide bomb. It's not the Starlight Express, it's the Inshallah Light Express. It's Torval and Kareem dancing on ISIS. Yeah, I've got millions of these. He was a skater boy. She said, please don't stone me to death for wearing my hijab incorrectly. But please don't worry, we could never get rollerblading Islamic morality police here because our roads are too bad. How does Kabul have better roads than Glasgow? I don't understand. Listen, if an Islamic caliphate is the only way to get our potholes fixed, I'm all for it. There were riots in Dublin this week, sadly, after an Algerian man stabbed children in an absolutely tragic incident. Although you wouldn't know that an Algerian man has stabbed children looking at the mainstream media. The BBC said it's not clear what caused the unrest. According to them, people spontaneously started rioting and looting. The mainstream media have criticised the rioters as far-right, anti-immigrant racists. Well, let's have a look at these far-right thugs. Here he comes here. Can I just say how wonderful it is that the anti-immigrant racist community is now so diverse? That is a real sign of progress. The Irish government sprang into action to toughen hate crime laws to clamp down on criticism of children being stabbed. The message from the establishment is that being opposed to children being stabbed is far right. I'm not sure that this is going to put people off being far right. The department store Target came under fire for sexualising Christmas. They have a gay Santa with the pride flag. Well, we don't know if that Santa is gay. He might just be waving the flag. There's also this disabled black Santa. I'm not quite sure how he gets down the chimney. And there's a trans nutcracker. I mean, I suppose the great thing about a trans nutcracker is that they can do their own transition surgery. Ouch. But why do Christians get all the fun, Target? Where's the range of LGBTQIA2SL++ Ramadan ornaments? Why are you discriminating against Muslims? Maybe next year you could make a gingerbread rooftop to throw the gay Santas off. I don't know. Anyway, sexualising Christmas, I think you'll find Cliff Richard got there first. Take it away, Cliff. Look at those moves. Look at that jaunty leg flick. Yeah, I'm going to crowbar a Cliff Richard reference into everything tonight. And that's been the curse word. And I'm joined tonight by the journalist and broadcaster Nicky Hodgson, the comedian Diane Spencer, and the broadcaster and lawyer Andrew Eborn. Well, let's discuss the riots in Dublin and start by looking at a quote from Irish Taoiseach, that's the sort of Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar. He said, "These criminals did not do what they did because they love Ireland. They did not do what they did because they wanted to protect Irish people. They did not do it out of any sense of patriotism, however warped. They did so because they're filled with hate. They love violence, they love chaos, and they love causing pain to others." Nicky, is Varadkar right? Are these protesters motivated by hate?
They're motivated by something negative, and I think that's probably want, not hate.
Right.
I mean, I get the vibe that these are people that are discontent with the government that they have. They feel that maybe they're not having enough access to education, that, you know, prices are too high, cost of living is driving them out of their homes, and they're annoyed because they're just annoyed. And this has become the litmus paper for their anger.
You really think that if lemons were 10 pence cheaper in Lidl, then these people wouldn't have rioted?
Yeah.
You don't think it's about the immigration policy at all? I mean, Diane, we've seen the Irish government, as you know, a lot of governments do across the West, pretty much ignore people's wishes on immigration and just have radical open borders policy. I mean, we've seen gross migration of 1.2 million people entering the UK to the year June 2023. Just in 1 year, 1.2 million people. But the equivalent in Ireland, with its population, they've had 2 million people. They've had the same, you know, equivalent size as the UK. I mean, do you think people are just, they want to be listened to and maybe have more sensible immigration policies?
I think that they do want to be listened to. They do want to have more sensible immigration policies. And when the looting starts, they do want new trainers. We must not forget that 'tis the season to be jolly and going shopping. And so when you do have the opportunity to potentially smash the window of JD Sports and get Christmas presents for the entire family, you know, you do sort of leap on that. What was interesting was I read an article where somebody who was ever so high up in the Irish Parliament, I'm terribly sorry, I can't remember the reference, said that this feeling had been building for months.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you could look at that two ways. You could say, OK, so there is a sentiment there where as soon as this happened, people went, oh, my God, I can't believe somebody's attacked. Let's underline this. A school with little children who are currently in hospital. So we must not forget what has triggered this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's enough to send anybody
And it comes
into a fury.
It comes on the back of murders of gay men in Sligo that were targeted by an Islamist, you know, because they're gay. So we're seeing, you know, these ideologically driven knife attacks across Europe. And one thing that worries me, Andrew, and you're as a lawyer, you'll be able to give some insight into this, is that Leo Varadkar, the Irish Taoiseach or Prime Minister, he came out and he said we're going to rush through hate crime laws, and then he sounded like he was going to apply it retroactively to the CCTV footage, which is, I mean, that's unconstitutional. That's against the Irish Constitution.
Some of the existing laws are good enough. And what tends to happen, I've really dug into the story trying to get it, because the first casualty in any war is the truth.
Yeah.
And looking at this sort of stuff, what's happened is they've been radicalised by social media is what's happened. And they look at this, and actually the reality, the rumour started that it was an illegal immigrant who basically went around shooting these poor children in that terrible situation. The reality, it appears to have been an Irish citizen who's been an Irish citizen for 20 years. Now, the media not yet reporting that, and so we need to look at that. But totally, what my new best friend, because she makes wonderful fudge, it's true. I love that. We've been having fudge porn all day. It's glorious. What I love about the point is, if the real objection is about the shooting and all that sort of stuff, you don't go looting, do you? That's not your first point of call.
Absolutely. You protest in a civilised manner. You say, we're against what just happened, or we've got a problem with immigration. You don't just go nicking stuff. You don't just go nicking stuff.
Nicky, come on. During Black Lives Matter riots, you think nobody was nicking some new Nikes then?
Yeah, but it didn't start out with them nicking stuff, did it?
I think it.
This was
Black Lives Matter.
Look,
there was just wanton destruction on a large scale.
It didn't start out as somebody's been murdered and therefore we're going to go nick stuff.
Neither did this. There have been protests for weeks, for months outside.
But this was directly. This is the excuse that's being used for people to say, "I'm annoyed. I don't like how we're living. I don't like this government."
Yeah.
Something else that's really important about this story, and it was only reported in one paper, is that the man who attacked the children is apparently. He has psychosis,
right.
And that's the line of thought that the police are pursuing, and that's really important because have you been psychotic? Because I have actually.
Oh, really?
I've had a psychotic breakdown. I'm writing about it. You don't need knives to be psychotic.
Right.
You just need to be
probably
absolutely
a bit
bonkers.
safer if you don't have knives.
Yeah, probably a bit safer. But what I'm trying to say is, if you are psychotic, you will plan to do things that make no logical sense to anybody else, but to you, in your crazed chemical state, because it's not induced by chemicals, it's your brain on fire, basically.
Yeah.
You would do something totally insane like this. So I think it's important that we establish, has the attacker actually got a really serious mental health thing going on?
Wow.
Or are they just kind of vindictive?
Or have they been radicalised online?
Well, I think there's two things. Radicalised online is the backlash to what's happened. What they're saying, and everybody's saying
who's
this.
radicalised online? The stabber or the
by
rioters?
the sounds of it. But also the individual concern, they do say it's not part of an organised terrorist or anything like that.
Exactly.
It's an individual, and Nikki makes a brilliant point, because mental illness, no joking aside, there are people with serious issues, we need to look at that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
But the reaction is what they're talking about, the radicalisation. So the reaction to what happened, this terrible thing, what's now the focus is all about the people who are rioting or the person who did it, as opposed to the real victims who are, what is it? It's like a 5-year-old girl is in a critical condition in hospital, female care assistant in her 30s is in a serious condition, and the girl 6 remains in hospital, but the boy 5 has just been discharged. The focus should be on the victims, and let's look at that.
But the rioters should think about that, shouldn't they? The rioters shouldn't go out rioting, putting the focus on them when they report innocent people in hospital.
But the establishment hasn't reported on the establishment has barely mentioned the actual victims. They're almost tiptoeing around the fact.
But isn't that more about giving people a bit of peace and quiet when they're in hospital?
Yeah, but when I heard that this happened, I looked it up on. First of all, I went to the BBC website, and that was a mistake because I couldn't work out why there were riots.
Yeah,
they didn't actually outline it, and I thought, okay, so I'm looking at this article, thinking, oh my gosh, these people have been attacked, and there are riots, and I couldn't. There was no connection within the article, so that is something that. Like what the trusted Verify media managed to omit.
But it's a great example of what you have to do now, because we're drowning in a sea of information, most of which is false. So you have to get your news from a number of different sources.
Like GBNews.
Like GBNews. From Leo's show here tonight, we'll give you the facts. It's got to be.
And I just think the establishment would have been shouting about it a lot more if it had been a right-wing person who'd committed the attack. Anyway, still to come on the Saturday Night Showdown, we'll ask why the new Marvels movie flopped, and we'll get in the Christmas spirit by meeting a real-life elf. But next, in Cursed or Blessed, we'll discuss some of the week's heroes and villains, including Nigel Farage and his buttocks. Since he started appearing on I'm a Celebrity, the impact he has been having on people's lives up and down the country has been simply extraordinary. Excuse me, the best-dressed people in Paddington, can I just ask you, have you been watching Nigel Farage on I'm a Celebrity?
I don't even know who he is, mate.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Leo Carson. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. It's time for Cursed or Blessed. Me and my brilliant panel will look at 3 big names in the news this weekend, and we'll tell you whether they are heading for the glorious sunlit uplands of heaven or the dark, dank and miserable pits of hell, or maybe somewhere less dramatic like Milton Keynes. And let's start with Argentina's eccentric new president, Javier Milei. He's a tantric sex guru who gets political advice from his dogs, including one that passed away in 2017. It's easy to laugh, but the dogs have already come up with more sensible policies than the Tories have managed in 13 years. And Rishi Sunak was spotted out shopping for a doggy Ouija board earlier today. So, Andrew, Javier Milei has been smeared as far right, but really, he's a libertarian. Is he the hero Argentina needs right now?
Don't cry for me, Argentina. What I love are the extreme views. He's had everything from abortion to gay rights and more. Tax is theft, he said. Social justice is an aberration, and public health, public education and social welfare need to be abolished, is what he said. And he also said the climate crisis is a socialist lie. So he's a moderate man.
Makes Hitler look moderate, definitely, yeah.
It's got to be. What I also love about these wonderful politicians now is their glorious hair. Because in order to get ahead, you've got to have a head of wild hair.
Yeah.
And we'll see. It's true, isn't it?
Tony Blair with the hair.
Tony Blair with the hair.
Michael Fabricant.
Michael Fabricant. But is it hair?
Sort of stuff.
I mean...
We also look, as we're going to come on in with our little friends in Amsterdam as well. They all look brilliant.
Yeah.
Suella Braverman could go for like Cruella de Vil.
Suella de Vil.
Like one of those. Yeah, she could have like the Suella, like the swirl of white in the dark hair.
Absolutely.
And then she would.
That's the secret to success in the current climate. I think politically, if you want to get ahead of shocking hair. That's what you've got to do.
Javier Milei has promised to slash the state in Argentina, much needed after decades of socialism. We've got a clip of him here saying how he's going to slash the state, all the departments he's going to get rid of.
Turismo y deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera.
I mean, Nikki, you must appreciate that. I mean, even if you're not.
I appreciate the comedy value of the absolutely do.
But we don't need a minister of culture and all these nonsensical quangs.
No, we don't care about museums, galleries, arts, books, none of that.
Listen, if people want museums, they can go to museums and pay for museums themselves.
Well, they can just look history. The history, socialist history of Argentina is soon going to be a museum, isn't it? Some weird lefty woke museum where people go to remember that they used to have rights. Oh my God.
Rights? What are you talking? He's giving people more rights. I mean, under
Which
socialism.
people? Definitely not women when he's saying they're not allowed abortions anymore.
No, that's. I mean, that was a. I'm pretty.
Oh, no, we'll put that to the side. We don't worry about that one.
He's even letting people sell their organs. He's a very liberal guy.
OK, liberal,
So,
yes.
but, I mean, socialism has destroyed Argentina. And, you know, you say about people's rights. What about the right to own a business and operate freely without, you know, being taxed at 120%?
Yeah, but I think sort of ignoring the fact that there was a dictatorship that did murder many of its population. I think sort of sweeping that under the rug and saying, no, they were heroes of a different time. I think that's a bit much, don't you?
I think you're focusing on his negative attributes.
Rather than his hair, because his hair is what they voted for, obviously.
He might just mean...
chops on the side.
Isn't it glorious? I love it.
You know, there's more to politics than haircuts.
What?
That is all.
Well, we're shocked because we didn't realise that, did we?
It looks like we could actually form a South American government right here.
Should we do that? Absolutely, I love it. We'll take over.
But yeah, I mean, Peronism has destroyed Argentina, and also the IMF gave Argentina a $44 billion loan that they've now got to pay back under Javier Milei. Even though, you know, why would you lend socialists money? You know they're only going to spaff it up the wall. Do you think the IMF should wipe
Well,
that
like the Tories. The Tories are pretty good at spaffing money up the wall, and we don't say that, you know...
They gradually pay the debts back.
Do they? No.
Yeah.
No. They've got us into more debt.
We haven't defaulted on our sovereign debt yet.
Yeah,
I mean, only because we've
and if that's
to dig lower, that's why.
Anyway, moving on now to another surprise election result. The Freedom Party, led by the right-wing Geert Wilders, are set to become by far the biggest party in the Dutch parliament. Wilders has been dubbed the Dutch Trump, so the poor citizens of the Netherlands can look forward to hush-money rows, multiple arrests and an attack on their government buildings led by some bloke wearing horns, probably a Viking, to be honest. Nikki, is Geert Wilders cursed or blessed?
Well, blessed by his standards. He's been waiting for this a long time. And, I mean, in fact, he actually looks quite shocked that he's actually in power. And sort of, there was a glorious picture of him on the front of the Telegraph going, like this, like, oh, my God, now I have to make laws and tell people what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the policies are just hilarious to me. What's that thing about bringing back that racist black figure in
Black Pete.
Black Pete that everybody is so glad that they've got rid of. There's a few people that've got a secret one in the attic, and that'll be worth a bit more because he's bringing it back.
I mean, that's authentic Dutch culture. That predates...
well, it is, but how many modern Dutch people want it to come back? Probably nobody.
But I mean, I think that's a pretty small issue compared to the rest of what he's platforming.
I think the hair and Black Pete are going to be the big issues of the day. That's all you're going to see on the tabloids in the Netherlands for the next 6 months.
Andrew, I'm worried that people are already talking. Even though Geert Wilders, he won 37 of the 150 seats, way out ahead of the next party, which won I think 24. And already the other parties are talking about creating this cordon sanitaire so that Geert can't actually take power and can't be prime minister or play any role in the government. I mean, isn't that anti-democratic?
Well, I think the reality is that people at the moment are looking for a hero, and people who promise we're going to get rid of all these jolly foreigners and we're going to do this and sort your life out are the ones they're voting for. So the real issue is exactly that. And I like to research these things. Firstly, his name is Geert. And so it is how you pronounce it. It's that new strain of COVID that you get. But that's how you pronounce it.
This is a man who says croissant.
I just say croissant, but I got white on it, as you say. It's always something. But that's the reality. So the worrying thing is, why are these people getting voted in? And the reason they're getting voted in is because we live in a terrible age at the moment, where you're turning around where there's a question of heating or eating. So who do you blame? You blame all these foreigners, even though they were probably born there as well as you were.
No,
that's the reality.
I don't think the issue in the Netherlands is all to do with immigration. I mean, it's to do with cultural issues. They've seen a lot of Islamic immigration, and a lot of people are worried about that changing the Dutch liberal values in their culture. And in fact, Geert Wilders, what's surprising about this election result was he got a lot of support from the liberal areas, as well as out in the sticks where you might think people would be a bit more
pitchforky.
Yes, but he's promising to do things like shut down mosques. If you're a woman wearing a hijab, you've got to take it off before you go to a government building. You can imagine there'll be like these nice hair salons popping up around important places because you need to sort your hair out, you've got to take your scarf off. Yeah, maybe it is, but I mean, I've never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Well, also, he was banned from entering the UK, remember, in 2009.
Yes. And that gave him infamy.
He said the Quran was going to call it a fascist book.
Yes, he says it's like Mein Kampf.
All of these things, he gets a certain narrative, and they always say, if you want to draw a crowd, start a fight. Well, you're working on that sort of basis, so this is what they're doing. They're looking for the heart and the soul of how you get these people voting for you, and that's what he's turning around and happening.
OK, well, I think you're being too critical. Anyway, our final is Nigel Farage's backside. Hey. People have been saying for a while that I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here has reached the bottom of the barrel. And I think this has exposed a deep crack in the franchise. Hey. When he originally heard about the offer, Nigel said he would give the producers a ring. Hey. So I guess it's mission accomplished. Can he win Rear of the Year, though? Let's see what the great British public think. You've been watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Hello? What?
Sorry, have you been watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here?
No, not yet.
No? You know Nigel Farage is on there?
I've seen his bum, but I haven't watched it.
You've seen his bum? Could you rate his bum out of 10?
I'd say a 2.
2? And you know he's exposed his buttocks, apparently. I mean, not deliberately, but somebody's seen his buttocks.
I have not had such honour. No, I didn't see that either.
It's a TV show called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
My name? I'm from Ukraine. What?
Oh, you're from Ukraine. Welcome to the UK. Did you see his buttocks?
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you rate them out of 10?
Yeah. 8.
Did you see the buttocks yourself?
I did. It was a sight for sore eyes.
So you enjoyed that?
No.
Oh, you didn't. You didn't enjoy that. How would you rate the buttocks out of 10?
Not the best I've ever seen. I'll put it that way.
Right.
I much prefer. Who's the French guy?
I'm not sure.
I'd rather
Excuse me, the best dressed people in Paddington. Can I just ask you, have you been watching Nigel Farage on I'm a Celebrity?
I don't even know who he is, mate.
But we're wondering, would you think he'd be a good candidate for Rear of the Year this year?
I have to see it first.
So would you mark him out of 10 once you've seen the picture?
I will not do such thing, no.
But he's on this TV show, and one of the contestants sees his buttocks in the shower.
No, thank you. I don't.
A mixed reaction from the public then, but what do my panel think? Andrew, would you bear all for a few quid?
I'll do anything for a few quid, me. And a bit of fudge, I love it. You're lucky. You're lucky, as they said on fudge. Yeah, thank you. You're lucky, as they said on social media, that it didn't turn around. Otherwise, you would have seen the honourable member. It was actually a decline in the programme. What I love is that Josie Gibson, who's one of the things, she won a Celebrity thing beforehand. She was sort of saying, fair play to him. He just gets on there, and at least he's clean.
Unlike some people. Who's she talking about?
They were the Jungle together. Absolutely, it was a thrill.
I think what we've realised here is that Nigel has missed an opportunity to have a tattoo on his buttocks.
Ooh.
Can you imagine the furore that we would have had? Never mind him just revealing it. They've got, oh my God, Nigel Farage has got a tattoo.
Could have had the GBNews logo on there, couldn't he?
I think he should have the GBNews logo.
Yes.
I think we could do that, absolutely. But you should also, he could have sponsored all sorts of things. We could maybe get a sponsorship for Nigel's buttocks. I reckon if we worked on commission, this would be brilliant. So not only that, his OnlyFans page, forget the 1.5 million.
Has anybody set that up yet? Anybody out there? I wonder who gets there first. Somebody has set it up for him, surely.
Oh,
I mean, the one clip.
Apart from Lorraine, who didn't quite like it. Did you read that in the paper?
His face. She said his face is... he's got the face he deserves or something like that.
The face he deserves.
A wrinkly face.
Well, both of them. You can't say that. No, but you could. But interesting, put that the other way round. If a male had criticised a female in the current climate, how much outrage would that have been?
That would have been it.
But then there'd have been a guest on GBNews, so
Come on, this guest on the Leo Kerr show. It's got to be good. You're right,
whenever somebody comments on a woman's body now, like if it's like Lizzo, she's always got to be stunning or beautiful. So I'd be terrified.
She's tiny, isn't
I'd be terrified if people said I had a fantastic bottom, because I'd assume it wouldn't be able to fit down an aircraft aisle.
It is an interesting thing. But all this thing about fat shaming and so on and so forth, it should work. If you're going to be blind to everything is what you've got to try and do. The way you get equality is to turn around and not make an issue for one group of people. Nigel. So I do think it was wrong of Lorraine. She's brilliant on other things. It was wrong for her to fat shame him, whatever age shame him. It just doesn't make sense. Nigel, I think, to his credit, he's getting a lot of airtime, and he's very wise to this. He knows you get 25. He did his research, and I can tell you the stats. He got 25% more airtime if you do a challenge than you would do if you didn't, and you're more likely to increase your value to the viewers than if you don't.
And what if you take your trousers off?
Well, it's an impressive...
Absolutely.
Let's not start planning his post-jungle porn career. That's an impressive effort from Nigel then. But could any previous I'm a Celebrity contestants rival him for Rear of the Year? How about David Hay? You'd expect a former heavyweight boxing champion to be well-proportioned. Looks like he's been getting in his squats, Nikki.
Yeah, you could call it that.
Do you prefer that to Nigel Farage's?
No, because I like to see the back of Nigel Farage. So it's perfect.
What do we have any other contenders for Rear of the Year? How about Italian stallion Gino De Campo? He's cooked up something pretty spicy here, Diane. There he is. Look at that. I mean, I know it's far away.
Diane's squinting at the screen. She needs her magnifying glass.
Just imagine a bottle.
Lovely. Well done, Gino. I mean, to be fair, the one person who really played the angles in the jungle was Katie Price.
Right.
And she knew what she was doing. And even she was muttering it under her breath. And I loved her for that, because I loved how she'd emerge out of the pond, and she knew she had, like, her boobs at sort of the right angle, and then she'd go, well, that'll be on the front page. And, like, she was ticking it off in her mind.
5,000. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so some buttocks we'd like to see. And let's see what you viewers make of all this. 76.7% of you say yes to should Nigel Farage win the Rear of the Year, whilst 23.3% of you say no. So that's a very convincing victory, just like Javi Emily's. Anyway, still to come on the Saturday Night Showdown, I get to meet a real-life elf. Are they ready for Christmas? How is Santa feeling? Do they like the John Lewis ad? But next, in Culture Corner, we'll be asking why Marvel's latest release has been apparently their biggest flop of all time. It's the issue which has got the nation talking. Have you got any plans to see the Marvels film that's come out this week?
Actually, no.
Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't. No.
Are you Marvels fans?
I don't even know what it is.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, cyclists think the highway code doesn't apply to them. It's time for bikes to have a registration number so they can be accountable at last. In My Take at 10, the BBC licence fee is predicted to reach almost £200 in the next 5 years. Is it worth the money? Plus, was Cliff Richard right to fat shame Elvis Presley? And could a new royal book cause more chaos for King Charles? We're live at 9.
I'm Leo Carson. This is your Saturday Night Showdown, and it's time for Culture Corner. Me and my brilliant panel are going to tell you what's been happening in the entertainment world. Where else would we start but with what is being dubbed the biggest flop in Marvel's history? Imaginatively titled The Marvels, it took 38 million quid on its opening weekend. I mean, that sounds okay, but it cost 176 million quid to make, plus like another 150 for marketing costs. You end up with a balance sheet that looks like something Liz Truss and Quasi-Quarting might have come up with. Let's take a look.
She's targeting every planet we call home. I would never choose to bring anybody into this.
You are not the only thing standing between this and the universe.
And people are complaining online that this film is just another example of crowbarring in diversity without working on a good story. Is this why it flopped? I ventured out earlier to see if the public had any answers. Have you got any plans to see the Marvels film that's come out this week?
I haven't actually, no.
Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't. No.
Are you Marvels fans?
Don't even know what it is.
But do you know why the Marvels, in particular this one, has had such a bad box office response?
No idea, because it's crap.
Can I ask your dog a few questions? Are you going to see the Marvels? Are you going to see the Marvels? Maybe it's not popular in the dog world. Are you going to go and see the Marvels at the cinema?
Oh, next year's ones.
It's out now.
Oh, there's one out now? Yeah. Oh, crap. I'll definitely go and see it. I didn't realise. This is me waiting for 2024. Oh, crap. I'm not in the know.
Why do you think the Marvels is doing so poorly? It's been their biggest box office flop in history.
Oh! Bad marketing, probably.
Bad marketing.
And people don't like Brie Larson, so that's probably why.
People don't like Brie Larson? Oh my God, why?
Yo, why? Boys,
why not?
Why? Generally, people have not had positive sentiments about her.
Are you planning on seeing the Marvels film?
No.
No? That's a very emphatic no. Why is that?
I don't like action films or superheroes.
I know it's like quite bad.
Oh really? What is it?
I know, apparently a lot of people say the movie's not very good.
A lot of people are saying the movie's not good?
Yeah.
But you still want to see it?
I don't mind.
Right? You don't mind bad movies?
It's Marvel.
Well, the public have spoken, but what say my panel, who I'd like to point out are also diverse. We've got 50% women. It's just so we can get an Arts Council grant. Diane, I think you've got an opinion on this. You mentioned Brie Larson is unpopular.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this film really failed, because number one, the Marvel franchise has been getting worse and worse and worse because they are literally just churning out so much content and they're racing through it, and the special effects have got worse.
Oh, really?
They really have. If you watch She-Hulk, it looks like she's just covered in green cotton wool. It's just absolutely bizarre. It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So for a start, the quality's going, and they're churning them out so much that the story writing seems to be left on the floor. Number two is that there's this thing called the MCU universe, where because they have made a decision to make 50% of superheroes women, which I understand and I get,
but that's like trying to make truck drivers women.
Yeah, but wait a minute, right? The problem is they're not writing likeable superheroes.
Yeah.
They're sort of Captain Marvel herself is deeply unlikable because she has no flaws whatsoever. How do you get behind this woman?
But that's feminism, isn't it?
No, it isn't. No, it's the opposite.
You go, girl.
But no. Feminism's not that. Feminism's like, everything's crap and I'm crap, and that's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're still going to do
But we're still going to do stuff, exactly.
Right, that's what feminism is.
No.
We know you've been waiting for that definition.
But another issue is that the film itself, it combines Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and a character from WandaVision. And it's just like, I haven't got the time
So there's no
to watch all those strands and then put it together.
There's all these different strands, so the characters themselves haven't been built up, so nobody really cares about the characters. So you've got massive flaws in the film itself. The baddie, you know how, like, we all loved Alan Rickman. I know it's a bit of a throwback, but Alan Rickman, whenever he's been a baddie, he has been sensational, because he was the baddie, Sheriff of Nottingham, he was the baddie in Die Hard, just brilliant. But this baddie, completely unforgettable. No personality, really. Nobody really knows what she's doing. And Brie Larson herself, she's like the main character, Captain Marvel, who can just do everything anyway, which is so dull.
So boring. If you meet that woman, you don't want to know her, do you?
Oh, no. You'd be like, oh, no, here she comes. Miss Perfect.
So Marvel Studios are trying to make it super inclusive for women, but they're actually alienating women by making an unlikable character. Andrew, are you going to go and see this film?
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I will only comment on things.
Andrew does his research.
I see everything. I see everything. And the whole way that Marvel has evolved is basically in the same way as Barbie. We'll talk about that in a bit. And Mattel, because it's interesting. What happens is they're trying to appeal to all sorts of people. What they should do is basically, they want to be inspirational to the little girls who haven't seen superheroes. They're not going to want to be Hulks. They're not going to want to be Superman. They could be Superwoman and so on and so forth. So what you need to do is to have heroes which are likeable.
Yes.
So they should consult the group they're trying to appeal to on that sort of basis. But it's wrong to say go woke, go broke on this particular one, because you see Barbie, which is the pink gloriousness, is what, 1.44 billion at the end of October. If you have a look at the highest grossing thing.
So you've got to write the story. You've got to make it a good story as well.
Yes.
Well, I think it's ridiculous to try and angle things at people. I always wanted to be Wonder Woman when I was a kid. And anyway, if you want to see something a lot more entertaining than the Marvels movie and a lot shorter into the bargain, check out this video of someone farting into his neighbour's security camera.
And that's the second contender for Rear of the Year, is it?
For the benefit of radio viewers, that was someone farting. It sounded like the tune to Frere Jacques.
It was rather good.
Into his neighbour's security camera, and then standing on a rake like Sideshow Bob and falling over in embarrassing fashion. And unlike the Marvels, it only cost $140 million to make. That wasn't you in the video, by the way, was it, Andrew?
Well, I now that you ask, it was my Rear of the Year, and it's the best way I speak, actually. It's the most sensible thing I've said forever. The reality is these things are everywhere, and people like to show off, don't they, with these cameras? So it's not surprising. You'll get lots of these, and I'll tell you what, if we do this as a little feature and a regular thing, we could have The Crack with Leo, and you can turn round. We can get these videos sent to you every single time. I think stuff on security cameras. We are filmed more than any other country virtually in the world.
So every fart is captured. Anyway, don't forget the brilliant Mark Dolan is coming up tonight at 9 p.m. But before all that, I'm going to be speaking to a Christmas elf. We're just getting more and more highbrow. See you in a couple of minutes.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Leo Carson. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. It's that wonderful time of the year when Christmas lights are being turned on up and down the land. I mean, unless your council has gone bust and can't afford any. No such problems in Weymouth, though, which for the 3rd year in a row has been hosting the South West's largest elf street party. And we're now joined by a real live elf. Good evening. Welcome to the programme.
Hello.
An elf street party sounds like a lot of fun. Can you tell us what has been happening in Weymouth today?
Yeah, so obviously today has been our Christmas light switch on. So we've had an elf street parade, which included elf walkers, elf performers, elves from near and far, young and old, all walking through the town. And then we've had live performances, live music, the light switch on, the panto crew from Weymouth Pavilion coming over and doing some performances for us, and then we rounded it all up with a local band, Lego Men, playing some Christmas hits for us. So yeah, it's been really fun.
And Pippa, can I ask you, what exactly is an elf?
What exactly is an elf? Well, in Weymouth, an elf, you need to have a hat. If possible, you need to have elf ears. And then you need to wear a red or a green top and then black or stripy trousers. I mean, some of the elves have gone all out. They've got the shoes with the bells on. They've got hats with bells on. So, yeah, we're all for it down here.
Amazing. And it's almost 9 p.m. Are a few of the elves a bit the worse for wear by now?
Yes, we've definitely got some elf parties going on in the town. So we've got lots of bars, clubs and pubs that are hosting elves. Although this was a family-friendly show, so the younger elves are definitely tucked up in bed now.
Right, well, with all that boozing, I hope none of you need the National Elf Service by 3 a.m. I'm sorry, Pippa. And Pippa, we always think of elves as male, but it looks like that's out of the window. Are female elves now all the rage?
Well, you know, I feel like there have always been male and female elves in Santa's workshop, but definitely today there was a good mix of boy elves, girl elves, old elves, young elves. So yeah, a lot of diversity in the world of elves these days.
Brilliant. It's great to hear that elves are staying with the times. Pippa, thanks so much for joining us, and really enjoy your elf parade in Weymouth. And let's finish with some festive fun. Nikki, are you getting in the Christmas spirit already, or are we peaking too early?
Oh, I get get sorted in September. I've already got all my Christmas cards. I'm so organised because it's the only thing I'm organised at because I enjoy it so much. My mum arrived from Australia yesterday. She's here for a month. Hi, Mum. And yeah, I'm just I can't even calm down because I get so excited about Christmas.
Don't calm down. Never calm down.
No, very excited.
My dad's made his spreadsheet, and
yes, I've got a spreadsheet.
Yes, you've got a spreadsheet.
I've got a Christmas spreadsheet. Yes, you need it.
What you're cooking?
Absolutely.
And we're doing this year. We're doing a family mince pie test. So we are constantly going out and we're sending each other ratings of the mince pies on the family WhatsApp. Yeah, right now I think the winner is the Nero individual mince pie.
Oh, really?
But I think we should have a separate category for like boxes of 6 or like the individuals, because an individual's always going to win.
It's not very fair,
Costs the same amount as a box, and as a fudge lady, that's not a pejorative. That's you're have you developed a mince pie fudge?
I've developed a Christmas citrus fudge.
Right.
Christmas citrus, where I put cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and Valencian orange into it.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mix that in with a little bit of peel, and it's very Christmassy, and you kind of eat it and you go, oh, that is Christmas. And that's what it does.
Amazing. Andrew, are you a Christmas man?
Every single day of the year, I love Christmas. But we're also half American in my family, so we celebrate Thanksgiving first.
Right.
Yes. Which you have to do. Thank you. Yes! The fudge lady in the corner. Yes. So what happens is you have turkey. You're not allowed to have a single bit of Christmas until you've done that bit, which happened last Thursday, which we love. But what I love is the way that other countries basically appropriate our Christmas. And there's a wonderful legend in Japan of what they did. They had a Father Christmas and they nailed him to a cross. You missed the point, really.
You don't want to get rid of Christmas and Easter and have no more fun at all for the rest of the year.
That's going to upset a lot of children.
Thank you. Coming to a movie near you soon.
That's amazing.
It's going to be good.
And have you ever, I mean, as somebody whose family's half American, have you ever deep fried a turkey? I mean, that is something they do in America, which as a Scot I'm very interested in.
Took it over and they tried to make that the Christmas dish in Japan. Right. So they tried to sort of hijack that. But yes, we've done all sorts of wonderful turkeys, which you do in shrouds and stuff like that. So we tend to veer away from the fowl at Christmas time. We like to have a bit of roast beef or something like that.
Oh yeah, we have beef. No, not a rib of beef. You know, really nice round.
And I'll tell you, duck or goose, because the goose fat makes the best roast potatoes ever.
And it's great for fudge as well. Anyway, coming up at 9, we've got the great Mark Dolan. Evening, Mark. What have you got for us this evening?
Leo, stop right there. Let me congratulate you on a fantastic first show. We've all been chuckling outside in the office. Congratulations. My Saturday nights are sorted now for entertainment. Well, we've got a very busy 9 till 11. In my big opinion, should cyclists be obliged to have number plates and insurance? And in my take at 10, the BBC is predicted to cost £200 a year within 5 years. Is that value for money? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict. That's my take at 10. We're live at 9.
£200 a year? I'm so glad I've cancelled my licence fee. That's insanity.
Can you do that?
Yeah, it is indeed. It's not nearly as good as GB News, which costs you nothing.
Yeah, unless you sign up to the membership programme, which would make an excellent Christmas present. Anyway, thanks so much for watching the first ever episode of the Saturday Night Showdown. Thanks to my panel, Diane Spencer, Nicky Hodgson and Andrew Eborn. Have you had a good time on the show?
Oh, best time ever.
Definitely.
Can we come back on?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, great. Anyway, have a great night. See you next Saturday. Let's have your latest weather from Craig.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, tonight's going to be another dry and cold and frosty one for most of us. A bit of a change out towards the west, and that's all courtesy of this weather front. That's just going to bring in some cloud and rain as the night goes on. But with high pressure generally in charge across much of the UK, clear skies, it's a perfect recipe for a widely frosty night across the UK. Still a bit of a breeze down the eastern seaboard, so here actually temperatures will just stay just above freezing. And then later on, as we start to see this cloud and rain move in, temperatures will recover out towards the west. So as we start Sunday morning, we could just see a few mist and freezing fog patches around, but they will quickly clear. And we'll just start to see this area of cloud and rain just gradually spread its way a little bit further eastward. So sunshine turning increasingly hazy across many eastern areas, but staying largely dry here as the day goes on. Best of the sunshine up across parts of northern and eastern Scotland, but the far north actually just seeing a few outbreaks of rain. Temperatures in the west a little bit higher than they will be today, but still on the cold side for the time of year. Into Monday, a bit of a grey, damp start across many parts of the UK. Some sunshine across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will spread its way a little bit further southwards as the day goes on, but still feeling fairly cold, and that cold theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, but it will turn a little bit drier and brighter.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared